Are you ready to transform your passion for education into a thriving business? Whether you're a college consultant, educator, or entrepreneur looking to make an impact, this is the podcast for you. In each episode, we will dive into actionable strategies for business development, sales and marketing, technology, and the ever changing college admissions landscape. You'll also hear from industry leaders, business owners, and education experts who share their insights, successes, and challenges. In today's episode, we will be hosting our very own Dr. Jessica Ruzicka on how she built her six-figure college consulting business. Let's get started. Hello, everybody, and welcome to podcast number one, the EDU Academy. We are so excited that you will be joining us throughout this experience. And really, our passion is on helping educational consultants really grow and build their business. And so we are going to be interviewing in this podcast multiple different educational consultants, primarily in the college consulting space, but really to find out what are some strategies and ways to build a successful business. So one of my favorite people and sort of partner in crime is Dr. Jessica Ruzicka is with us today, and we're going to be diving into how she has built her college consulting business and has been in the space for a really long time and has seen a lot of things. So let's get started. Jessica, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, happy to be here.
Of course.
So my name, of course, is Dr. Ruzicka, and I got started in this field a very long time ago. Actually, I remember it vividly in 1998 when I graduated with my bachelor's degree in psychology. And at the time, I was planning to go to get my master's into school counseling. And around the same time, I was a little bit unsure. So I applied for a job at a university in the Office of Financial Aid.
Yep.
And I took that job, and that pretty much changed the trajectory of my career for a little bit. So I stayed in higher ed working in financial aid, career advising, admissions, program development, went on to get my doctorate degree, my master's, of course, in higher education instead of school counseling. So learned all of the ins and outs of higher education, and then luckily took a job as a director of college counseling at a private K-12 school. So ended up circling back around to get some of that experience in the schools as well. So then got to be able to really help students and families navigate from the high school side into the college side of things before starting private practice. So I've had a wealth of information and experiences to get started.
That's amazing. And we're so excited to be bringing that experience with us today, since you have both been on the K-12 side, the higher ed side, and the private consulting side. Sort of, you probably have a lot of tips and tricks. So let's kind of
Mhm.
get into some of the questions that I have for you today. So what do you think are kind of the first essential steps for any college consultant who wants to get into the space? How did they get started? And how can they
Mhm.
really set themselves apart from maybe other consultants doing
Mhm.
this work?
Well, that's a great question. So this space is so vast, first of all, with over 4,000 different colleges and universities, and it's very specific. And getting started really takes a lot of time
Mhm.
to understand, number one, the process, the landscape, and the different components that are really all tied and weaved into the process. So
Mhm.
the very first thing I would say is going through the process from the student and parent's point of view to
Mhm.
really understand the different processes and the different steps that it requires and when to get started, the timeline. So that right there takes some time to understand it and to understand really how important all the different steps are, so that by the time the student is a senior, putting all those different pieces together. So that would be step number one, and really diving into just the process of it and how to set yourself apart. Really having a niche, starting to spread the word of what you do, because as we know, Amanda, having been on both sides of the table, really higher ed and K-12, we understand how difficult it is for a school counselor to really have the bandwidth to spend the ample and the required amount of time, to be honest with you, with every individual student that's out there. So that's where we've really seen this field start to evolve, is
Mhm.
as the school counselor's caseload has increased and the responsibilities of the school counselor has increased into a wide variety of other things. This whole very important transition piece from high school to college has really kind of been a gap there. And
Mhm.
so that's what we've been finding for people entering into this space, is just diving in and getting all of the specific information and understanding it from a larger perspective, in order to help the student have their roadmap of where they are and where they want to get to. So,
No, so many great points. And I do think because we have been in K-12, we understand the role of the school
mhm.
counselor. And I think a lot of times college consultants feel like they're going maybe against a school
Mm,
counselor, or it's something negative. But really, I know when, I sort of switched over to private practice, a lot of the counselors were really excited because they knew that the families that needed help were getting help. And so I often really reached out as a partner in
right.
the process, and they were so thankful to have that extra resource, to be able to help those families that really needed that extra high touch sort of
Mhm,
environment, because we know not every school counselor can, though they want to, and they
mhm,
are
mhm,
amazing. And that's why I think we see a lot of school
mhm.
counselors getting into this private consulting, right? Is they have the skills,
Exactly.
they have the knowledge, they just want more high touch, more ways to sort of reach and help students.
Exactly, because as we know, so many different opportunities and options for students, and if they're not made aware of them, then they could be missing out on different opportunities. And so, and honestly, it's just such an interesting field because number one, it shifts all the time, right?
Of
There's
course.
new
Mhm.
new trends happening every single, seems like, month. So staying on top of that is, it does take a lot of time, and being able to best support the student, whether
Mhm.
that's be understanding the student's strengths or helping them pick a major or
Mhm.
understand the different scholarship options or essays, applications. So there's so much that goes into it that
Mhm.
it's just really impossible for one person who has a caseload of
Yeah.
4, 5, 600 students to be able to accommodate all of the needs of
Mhm.
these students and families. So,
And especially with all the changes, we're really seeing that families are just overwhelmed by it.
mhm,
And so, like, you're exactly right. When you're a school counselor, like, you have testing and accommodations and 504s and IEPs, and you have mental health concerns, and you have, there's so many
scheduling and
scheduling.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
so hard, and maybe once a year I could get away to do the local state university sort of, "Hey, this is what's going on," but that's about it. Like, I really
Mhm,
just could not get so heavily involved. So, we know a lot of people are coming into this space, into college consulting, because they have that passion to help students.
mhm,
So,
mhm,
what are some challenges you have seen, whether it
mhm,
be in your own business or in working with other college consultants, and like just getting started and getting everything up and going so to
mhm.
make it their business successful?
Absolutely. So the first thing that I will say is that the education piece, if
Mhm.
you're coming into the space and haven't necessarily been, as we were, like high
Mhm.
school counselors, that would be the biggest challenge, I think, because there isn't necessarily a lot of options out there to teach,
Mhm.
new independent educational consultants how to do it, what goes into it, and learning that process and the timeline of it. So, having a support system and having people around you, that community that you can bounce questions off
Mhm.
of. I know myself, when I got into school counseling,
Mhm.
it was completely different than higher ed. Higher ed is very compartmentalized, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah,
Um,
for
and
sure.
so I might know financial aid and how it talks to admissions. But now, when you're working with students and
Mhm.
families, um, going into it,
Mhm.
I had to learn all the different things really on the go, on the fly, all by myself. And so having other school counselors, and now I have other IE, independent educational consultants that ask us questions, and just to make sure that they have all the most up to date current information to be able to communicate to the family. So I think that the education and the training
Mhm.
piece was probably the hardest thing. And so having a mentor or having a community where you can ask other people, I mean, we still do it, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you and I still send essays back and forth or ask,
Mhm.
opinions on things, because it is such a individualized, personalized. Every student is different. Every parent is different. All the students have different goals, and
Mhm.
so understanding how to best approach it and support the student um, sometimes takes other people's help.
No, and I so agree with that, and I think at the heart, as educational consultants, like, we do want to learn, right? We do
Mhm,
wanna dive in and we wanna do it, but I think running a business is
mhm,
really difficult, and I think one of the hardest things for me was going from sort of that, um public education sector to now doing the sales and the marketing and the
mm.
business side of the house. I didn't realize, and then I get so absorbed in that where I'm like, I still have to meet with my students and I still have to network. And, sometimes that other side too gets really overwhelming because
Mhm.
how do I dive into social media? How do I reach these
Oh,
clients?
yes.
So that's also, I think, another area, and you touched on definitely the information and the connectedness, especially a lot of us being virtual, right?
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
But also just running your business in the
Yeah.
most effective way.
Right, because again, that's a whole different skill set that
Yeah.
I didn't have either when I first jumped over here, and it is a different perspective, a different mindset, and yeah, there's so much to learn there as well. So having the different resources, and I mean, I've been pretty lucky in that I've had some people just to ask, like, what are your best practices? What program have you found to be most beneficial when starting out. So those types of like insider information, I think were key to building a successful consulting practice.
Absolutely. And I also think that really being aware of how much time and energy it takes and how much time and energy do you actually have, right? So you do have to have a lot of those foundational pieces. And as we know, as we've built our business, it takes time,
It
and you
does.
really just have to be strategic about, that growth model. Like, what can
Mhm.
I do in quarter one? What can I do in quarter two? And you really have to think about your business and what does that look like?
Exactly. And I think a lot of times I've seen it before where, you try to do too much all at one time, and then it kind of
Burnout.
fizzles out
Yep.
because you don't
Mhm.
have the bandwidth to do it all and to
Yeah.
learn it all at the same time. So building that foundation, one, like you said, one piece at a time, like we'll have this goal for quarter one, we have this goal for quarter two, and starting to organize it and plan it
Mhm.
out, and having the different tools and resources in place makes a world of difference. And I think that's how we were able to scale so quickly,
Yeah,
honestly.
for sure. So
Mhm,
you just mentioned tools and resources. So
mhm,
as we kind of finish up here, so what are some like tools or technology have you found that's been really important in growing your college
mhm,
consulting
mhm.
business?
Well, the first thing that I will say is I kind of touched on at the beginning. There is every university out there has their own way of doing things. They have their own admission requirements. They
Mhm.
have different majors. They all have their different like characters, if you
Mhm.
will, and their own way to kind of, every school is different. So the one thing that we found is having that information readily available for
Mhm.
families
Mhm.
when this family is doing like a college search and they're interested in engineering in the Northeast, and these are their statistics. Of course, there's a lot of college search platforms out there that you can utilize. The one that we have come across that has been most effective is called Counsel More, And that not only has a college search plan in there, but it also has, I can kind of identify different schools where the student might not have on
Mhm.
their radar, right? And you can look for a variety. There's over 300 different data points. So you can really get in the nitty gritty with that. And then also keeping track of accounting in there, how much time you're spending, you can bill
Mm.
from there. So like on the business side of it, that helps a lot with time. And then the essays, all, it's it's kind of like a portal where the student and the
Mhm.
counselor can kind of share documents and keep an application tracker in there. It's a communication tool, so you can text and email maybe whole like groups of students who,
Mhm.
if I have a whole bunch of students who I know want to continue to, maybe take the SAT, I could email them all out, be like, hey, are you practicing for this? Or what are you
Mhm.
doing here? Class of 2025, are you checking your portal? So it's a like been such a game changer, I think, for us and for all of our counselors to be using that platform to keep everything organized instead of hunting and pecking for where did the student send this resume to me or this essay,
Mhm.
or where did I have their transcript but I don't know where it is. So the organization piece of that has been huge. So I think that, and then of course we have other social media tools that we've been utilizing as well, just to keep, if you are trying to
Mhm.
bring awareness and brand your brand to your local community, then that we have a lot of those as well that we've kind of found to be the best choices.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely learning how to streamline your
Mhm.
activities. And, one of the things is I think a lot of college consultants, when you are working with students, you do sort of have that, again, we talked about bandwidth, right?
Mhm.
I might only be able to serve 20 students because you think about the time and the essays and the editing and everything that you need to do. But if you want to actually be making money and you need to get to that 30, 40, you need to have better processes, and using things like Counsel More and some of those social media programs. I know we use one. It just makes life so much simpler. So you
Mhm.
can really then focus on why you're here, which is
Exactly.
serving students, right? We're not
Exactly.
here to like just do social media all day, right? We're here
No.
to be with
No.
students. So,
Exactly, exactly. And just keeping that the focus,
yeah,
really, it is such a time saver, I will tell you.
yeah.
To be able to take on more students. So again, growing your business, that's what we're all about here. So
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, as always, Jessica, for joining me. And I know in this webinar or this podcast series that we're going to be doing, we're going to be interviewing a lot of different people that are in the space and really how do they grew their educational consulting businesses. And we're also going to have some leading experts coming in that are kind of come from the research side and the technology side. And so really trying to give you tips and tricks on growing that business and really scaling in a profitable way, especially for 2025. So, anything else, Jessica, you'd like to share with the group?
no, I'm just really super excited about this podcast and giving people, able the resources to be able to kind of weave them all together and understand how they can be so successful here. So
Yeah.
thanks
And
for
if you're
having me.
interested, yeah, and if you're interested in connecting with Jessica, just go to Jessica at eduservicesacademy.com and connect with her. She has lots of resources and things that she does every day. And then also join the EDU
Mhm.
Academy's newsletter. There's blogs, all the podcasts will be on there. And all the show notes for this is on eduservicesacademy.com. Thank you again, Jessica, and you have a great day.
You
Take
too.
care.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on today's podcast, the EDU Academy. Subscribe to stay informed and connected.